Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Nature Channel. Find a comfortable place to settle in tonight. Let your shoulders drop, your breathing slow, and your mind begin to soften. Tonight, we're going to wander together through something beautiful and strange. The gentle dance between chaos and order that happens all around us in the natural world. Not as opposites fighting each other, but as partners, creating the soft rhythm of life itself. Take a breath, let it out slowly, and let's begin. You know, when you look at a forest from far away, it seems like perfect chaos, trees growing wherever they please, branches reaching in every direction, leaves scattered across the ground in no particular pattern. But step closer, and you'll find something different. Each tree knows exactly where to send its roots. They follow invisible rules written in water and minerals spreading through the soil in patterns that make perfect sense, even if we can't always see why. There's a maple tree near a quiet stream that's been growing for 70 years. Its roots spread 15 feet in every direction, but never randomly. They avoid the largest stones. They curve around their neighbors. They dive deep where the water flows. What looks like wilderness from above is actually a slow, patient dance underground. Chaos wearing the clothes of order, or perhaps order dressed up as wilderness. And here's something wonderful. Scientists have found that trees in a forest actually space themselves out. Not consciously, of course, but through the simple act of growing. Each tree reaches toward light, and in doing so, they create gaps between their canopies, little windows of sky. From an airplane, old forests look like puzzle pieces, each crown touching but not overlapping. Perfect chaos creating accidental order. The wind doesn't care about patterns, you might think. It blows where it will, stirring leaves and bending grass with no thought at all. But watch what happens over time. The wind shapes trees on a hillside, all leaning the same direction, all bent by the same invisible hand. Individual gusts are chaos, wild and unpredictable. But thousands of winds over hundreds of years create something orderly, a hillside of trees that all remember the same story, told in the curve of their trunks. There's a meadow where wildflowers grow, and if you saw it in spring, you'd think someone had scattered seeds by throwing them into the air. Poppies here, lupines there, wild mustard everywhere and nowhere. But the flowers know something you don't. They're following the map of last year's rain, the chemistry of the soil, the pattern of morning sun. What seems random is actually flowers reading a landscape we can barely perceive, finding order in apparent chaos. Clouds drift across the sky in shapes that never repeat. No two clouds are ever the same, and they form and dissolve according to no schedule you could predict. Pure chaos, moving water vapor, painting temporary art. But they also follow rules, the temperature of air, the movement of fronts, the pull of pressure systems. Every cloud is chaos, yet every cloud obeys the same ancient laws. The sky is orderly chaos or chaotic order, both. Neither, everything in between. I hope you're enjoying this gentle journey through nature tonight. If these soft observations bring you peace, perhaps you'd like to leave a comment below. It helps others find these quiet moments too. And there's no pressure, just an invitation when you feel like it. In a tide pool by the ocean, small crabs scurry in what looks like complete disorder. They climb over rocks, duck under seaweed, chase each other in circles that make no sense. But watch for an hour, and you'll see they're following the tide. They move to wet places when the water pulls back. They hide when the sun gets too hot. They emerge when the cool evening arrives. Their individual movements are chaos, but their collective behavior follows the oldest clock in the world, the moon pulling the sea moving the crabs. Snowflakes fall without pattern, drifting on air currents that shift and swirl. Each one lands where the wind decides, building drifts that seem sculptured by chance. But zoom in close, and each snowflake carries perfect six-fold symmetry. Crystals grown according to precise laws of ice formation. The falling is chaos, the forming is order, and somehow the chaos of falling creates the order of a white blanket that covers everything equally, erasing all other patterns in its soft, democratic way. There's a spider web in the morning, covered with dew. It looks delicate and accidental, strung between two branches like an afterthought. But the spider built it with mathematical precision, creating a spiral that gets tighter as it moves toward the center, spacing each thread at intervals that would make an engineer nod with approval. The spider doesn't know geometry, yet the web knows geometry. The spider creates order without planning it, following instincts that are themselves the product of 1,000,000 years of chaos. Random mutations that slowly found their way to this perfect spiral. Ants walk in lines across a forest floor, and the line looks like order itself, a highway of tiny bodies all moving in the same direction. But each ant is making it up as it goes, following a chemical trail left by the ant in front, adjusting for obstacles, sometimes getting lost and wandering off. The line is really thousands of tiny acts of chaos that happen to point the same way. Order emerging from chaos, like music emerging from instruments that each play their own note. Lightning strikes where it strikes, they say, random and dangerous. But it's following the path of least resistance, finding the quickest route between cloud and ground. Branching when the air gives it choices, all according to the precise physics of electricity seeking earth. The strike looks like chaos, a jagged line drawn by a shaky hand, but it's actually solving a complicated problem in the fastest way possible, choosing its path through invisible differences in air pressure and moisture. Chaotic in form, orderly in function. If you're finding comfort in these observations, you might enjoy the other gentle stories in our playlist, each one a soft exploration of the natural world designed to ease you into rest. Rivers seem to wander wherever they please, curving and twisting across the land with no straight lines, chaos carved into the earth. But engineers know that rivers follow mathematical patterns. The ratio of a river's wavelength to its width stays remarkably constant. A small stream and a huge river both curve in the same proportional way. The river looks random, but it's actually following rules we can measure and predict. It creates order, even as it appears to meander without purpose. In autumn, leaves fall from trees, tumbling through the air on invisible currents. They land in heaps and piles, scattered by wind and chance. But underneath that chaos, there's order working. The leaves that fall first are the oldest, the ones that have done their work. The tree drops them in a sequence that makes sense, even if we can't see the logic from the ground. And where they land, they'll rot in a pattern too, piled deep here, spread thin there, creating the exact conditions that next spring's flowers will need, as if the chaos of falling leaves was actually planning for the future. Mushrooms appear overnight in a fairy ring, seeming to pop up randomly after rain. But underground, the fungus has been growing in a perfect circle for years, spreading outward from a central point at a steady rate. What looks like chaos above ground, mushrooms scattered here and there, is actually revealing the hidden order below. The fungus knows exactly where it's going, even if the mushrooms seem surprised to find themselves wherever they emerge. Waves roll toward the shore in what seems like endless variety, some tall, some small, some quick, some slow. No two waves exactly alike, each one responding to wind and current and the waves around it. Chaos moving through water, but measure the waves over time, and patterns emerge. Average heights, typical periods, predictable energy. The chaos contains order, or maybe the order permits chaos. The ocean is both at once, and neither one, and everything in between. Clouds of starlings move across the evening sky in murmurations. Thousands of birds turning and diving and swirling in shapes that seem impossible. No leader, no plan, just chaos somehow organizing itself into beauty. But each bird is following simple rules. Stay close to your neighbors, match their speed, avoid collisions. From those three simple guidelines, which each bird follows in its own chaotic way, emerges the order of the murmuration, a shape made of thousands of tiny decisions that together create something that looks choreographed, something that looks like it was designed, even though no designer exists. The sun rises and sets with perfect regularity, marking out days with the most orderly rhythm in our lives. But the moment of sunrise shifts every day, arriving earlier or later, depending on the season, wandering back and forth across the horizon throughout the year. Order containing chaos. The sun always rises, but never quite in the same place or time. And within that ordered chaos, life on Earth finds its rhythm, plants and animals tuning themselves to a schedule that's both perfectly reliable and constantly changing. Breathe slowly now. Feel the softness of this moment. You're part of this dance too. Chaos and order moving through you with every breath. Your heartbeat is chaos and order together. Each beat comes regularly, steadily, marking out time like a drummer keeping rhythm. But the intervals between beats aren't exactly the same. They vary slightly, shifting and adjusting in response to your breathing, your thoughts, your body's needs. If your heartbeat were perfectly regular, actually, it would be a sign of trouble. Healthy hearts have what scientists call variability, a little chaos inside the order, making each moment slightly unpredictable. Your body knows what minds sometimes forget. That perfect order is less alive than order mixed with just enough chaos. Think about your breathing right now. You don't control it most of the time. It happens on its own, rising and falling with automatic wisdom. But you can control it when you want to, taking charge of something that usually runs itself. Is that chaos or order? It's both, switching back and forth, your conscious mind and unconscious body taking turns, creating a rhythm that's neither completely wild nor completely tame. There's a garden where vegetables grow in neat rows, and you might think that's pure order imposed on nature. But the gardener who planted those rows knows better. Some seeds sprouted, some didn't. Some plants grew tall, others stayed small. Beetles ate holes in this leaf, but not that one. The rows are order, but within each row is chaos. Each plant doing its own thing, finding its own way to be a tomato or a bean or a squash. The garden is a negotiation between the gardener's plans and nature's freedom. Crystals form in caves over thousands of years, growing one molecule at a time into perfect geometric shapes. Quartz points and calcite cubes, each face flat, each angle precise. Pure order made solid. But the cave where they grow is chaos. Water dripping unpredictably, minerals dissolved in no particular pattern, temperature shifting with seasons. Yet, somehow, the chaos of the cave environment creates the order of crystals. The messiness of the real world makes perfect shapes, as if chaos knows how to count. Morning dew forms on grass blades, each droplet appearing on its own schedule, condensing from air when the temperature drops just enough. The timing is chaos. This blade gets a drop now, that blade a moment later. But by dawn, the whole field is covered evenly, as if someone had carefully placed water on each stem. Chaos in the moment, order in the result. The field doesn't care about individual drops, only about the soft, wet blanket that covers everything by sunrise. Perhaps you'd like to give this video a gentle like if you're finding it soothing. These small gestures help us create more peaceful content for quiet evenings like this. Termites build mounds that rise 20 feet high, with internal channels for air circulation, chambers for different purposes, walls thick enough to regulate temperature. The mounds look designed by architects, planned by engineers. But no termite knows the plan. Each one follows simple instincts. Add mud here, dig tunnel there, follow the termite in front of you. From millions of simple, chaotic decisions by individuals who can't see the bigger picture, emerges order, a structure that works, that breathes, that houses the colony perfectly. The termites create organization without understanding it, order without planning it. A fire burns through a forest, and it seems like pure destruction, pure chaos erasing everything. But the forest knows fire. Some seeds only sprout after burning. Some trees have thick bark that protects them. The fire clears old growth, returns nutrients to soil, creates openings where new life can begin. The chaos of flame becomes the order of renewal. The forest has learned to use fire, to incorporate it into cycles that are older than any individual tree. What looks like the end is actually part of the pattern. Rainfall varies from year to year, wet years and dry years coming in no sequence you can predict with certainty. Farmers learn to expect chaos, to plant with uncertainty in mind. But over decades, the rain averages out. This area gets about this much water per year. That region gets that much. The chaos, year to year, creates order, decade to decade. The rain is unreliable in the short term, perfectly reliable in the long term, and life has learned to work with both timescales at once. Birds migrate across continents, following routes that seem incredibly orderly. The same paths year after year, crossing mountains and oceans and deserts to reach the same destinations. But each individual bird's journey is chaotic, blown off course by storms, pausing to rest here or there, taking detours around obstacles. The route of the species is orderly. The route of each bird is chaos. And somehow, the chaotic individual journeys maintain the orderly migration route, generation after generation. Sand dunes form in deserts, building into waves and ridges that look permanent and solid. But the sand is always moving, grain by grain, shifted by wind that blows from changing directions. Each grain's movement is chaos, impossible to predict where this specific grain will land. But the dune's movement is order. It migrates across the desert at a predictable rate, maintaining its shape even as every grain of sand that composes it is constantly changing position. The dune is a pattern made of chaos, a still shape made of perpetual movement. Neurons in your brain fire in patterns that are partly chaotic. If they all fired together perfectly, you'd have a seizure. If they fired randomly with no pattern, you'd have no thoughts at all. Your thinking happens in the space between, neurons firing in groups and sequences that are ordered enough to create meaning, chaotic enough to be flexible, adaptive, creative. Your mind lives in that sweet spot between perfect pattern and perfect randomness, creating thoughts that are both new and coherent, both surprising and sensible. There's a stone at the bottom of a stream, worn smooth by water flowing over it for 100 years. The water's flow is chaotic, swirling and eddying, fast here and slow there, changing with every rainfall, but the result is ordered. The stone gets smoother, rounder, more perfect in its shape. Chaos as a sculptor, using randomness to create regularity, using disorder to find form. The stone doesn't know it's being shaped. The water doesn't know it's shaping. Yet, the pattern emerges. Coral reefs grow in shallow seas, and if you swim above one, you'll see what looks like chaos, colors and shapes and creatures and wild profusion, everything mixed together without plan. But the reef has order underneath. Coral grows where conditions allow. Fish patrol territories. Algae and anemones and sponges each have their niche. The chaos you see is actually thousands of ordered relationships overlapping, creating something so complex it looks random, so organized it appears disorganized. Your dreams at night seem like pure chaos, stories that make no sense, people and places mixing in impossible ways, logic abandoned. But researchers have found patterns in dreams. They process the day's experiences. They practice responses to threats. They consolidate memories. The chaos has function, even if we can't always see it. Your sleeping mind is doing orderly work through disorderly images, filing and sorting and learning, while you tumble through nonsense that isn't nonsense at all. If this gentle exploration is helping you relax, you might want to explore our playlist of nature stories, each one crafted to bring you peace. Moss grows on the north side of trees, people say, and that's order, a reliable pattern you can use for navigation. Except moss grows wherever it's damp enough, shaded enough, protected enough. Sometimes that's north, sometimes it's not. The pattern is real, but not absolute. Order that permits exceptions, a rule that breaks when it needs to. Nature doesn't mind contradicting itself, holding order and chaos in the same moment, being both true and untrue, depending on conditions. There's a particular kind of beetle that's iridescent. Its shell shimmers with colors that shift as it moves. The colors aren't from pigment, but from the microscopic structure of the shell, layers so precisely ordered that they bend light in specific ways. Chaos at the visible level, colors that seem to appear and disappear randomly. Order at the microscopic level, layers spaced exactly right to create the effect. The beetle is both at once, chaotic shimmer produced by ordered structure. Tides come in and go out with beautiful regularity, following the moon's pull with precision you can set your watch by. But the actual water level at any moment is chaos. Wind pushes it higher or lower. Storms surge it inland. Atmospheric pressure changes affect it. The pattern is reliable. The specific number is always somewhat uncertain. Tide charts give you the predicted time and height, but they're never exactly right. The ocean follows rules, but never slavishly. Volcanic eruptions seem like the ultimate chaos, mountains exploding, lava flowing wherever it wants, ash clouds blocking the sun. But geologists can read the patterns. This type of volcano erupts this way, that type erupts that way. Pressure builds predictably, releases in understandable patterns. Even the chaos of explosion follows rules of physics and chemistry. The eruption looks like the world breaking, but it's actually the world being exactly what it is, following laws so reliable that scientists can study them and make predictions that often prove correct. Frost forms on windows in patterns called dendrites, branching shapes like ferns spreading across glass in beautiful complexity. Each pattern is unique, responding to the specific conditions of that moment, how cold it got, how humid the air was, tiny scratches in the glass that provide nucleation points, pure chaos in the specific, pure order in the general. Every frost pattern is different, and every frost pattern is the same kind of thing. The window knows how to be both unpredictable and entirely consistent. Beetles navigate using polarized light from the sky, following patterns invisible to us. They need order to find their way, and they find it even when the sky seems uniformly bright. The light has structure, and the beetles read it. We see chaos, just bright sky. They see order, a map written in light waves. Reality contains both, depending on who's looking and what they can perceive. The chaos or order isn't in the thing itself, but in the meeting between the thing and the observer. Earthquakes happen when stress in the Earth's crust releases suddenly, and where they happen seems almost random. This fault moves today, that one tomorrow. This spot hasn't moved in centuries. But seismologists know that stress is building everywhere, always, following the slow chaos of continental drift. The order is in the accumulation. The chaos is in the release. Over millions of years, it all makes sense. Year to year, it's unpredictable. Both truths are true. Snowdrifts form against fences and walls, piling deep in some spots, leaving other areas bare. The pattern seems chaotic if you're standing in the middle of it. Snow up to your knees here, down to your ankles there. But from above, the pattern makes sense. The fence creates turbulence. The wind drops snow where the air slows down. The drift knows exactly where it's supposed to be, even if it looks haphazard from the ground. Order seen from one perspective is chaos from another. Seeds disperse in many ways, and some of them seem more orderly than others. Maple seeds helicopter down, spinning in predictable spirals. That seems orderly, but where each seed lands is chaos. This one catches a gust and flies 50 feet. That one drops straight down. The spinning is order, the landing is chaos, and together they ensure that some seeds land in good spots, some in bad, spreading the risk across the landscape. The maple tree uses both chaos and order to ensure its survival, hedging its bets with physics and randomness combined. Take a moment to breathe deeply. Feel yourself settling. You're held by these same gentle forces, patterns that contain freedom, freedom that creates patterns. Bees dance to tell other bees where flowers are, waggling their bodies in figure eights that encode direction and distance. Perfect order, a language written in movement, information transmitted with precision. But the other bees don't all follow the directions exactly. Some misinterpret, some decide to search somewhere else, some get distracted. The dance is order, the response is chaos, and together they work better than either alone. The chaos means not all the bees go to the same place, preventing overcrowding. The order means enough bees find the flowers to make the communication worthwhile. Glaciers flow downhill like frozen rivers, moving inches or feet per year, grinding rock to dust, carving valleys. Their movement seems incredibly orderly, gravity pulling them down, the landscape channeling their path. But inside the glacier is chaos. Ice crystals shift and slide against each other. Water flows through internal channels. Stress builds and releases in sudden cracks. The glacier is orderly from outside, chaotic inside, and both aspects are necessary for it to flow at all. Order at one scale, chaos at another, and the glacier doesn't care about the distinction. Wind patterns circle the globe in organized systems: trade winds, westerlies, jet streams. You can draw them on maps, predict their general behavior, understand how they move weather from place to place. But the actual wind at any moment, in any location, gusts and shifts and swirls with beautiful unpredictability. You can't step into the same wind twice. The system has order, the experience has chaos, and weather lives in both at once, simultaneously predictable and surprising. Pollen drifts on the air, and most of it lands nowhere useful, on roads and roofs and lakes, wasted from the flower's perspective. Chaos. But enough lands on other flowers to keep species alive, to mix genes, to create the next generation. The waste is enormous, the success rate tiny, but it works. Chaos as a strategy, disorder as a tool for survival. The flower doesn't aim carefully. It just releases millions of pollen grains and trusts that randomness will carry some to the right destination. Lichen grows on rocks in patches and blotches that seem random, coloring stone with gray-green and orange and black. But the lichen is reading the rock, growing where pH is right, where moisture collects, where sunlight hits. The pattern looks like chaos unless you know chemistry and microclimates. Then it's order, a map of invisible conditions written in living color. The rock looks randomly decorated, but is actually carefully read. If you're enjoying this peaceful exploration, a like helps others discover these calming stories, but only if you feel moved to do so. Salmon return to their birth streams to spawn, swimming upstream against powerful currents, leaping up waterfalls, navigating by smell and Earth's magnetic field. The pattern is orderly. The same streams, the same journey, generation after generation. But individual fish make mistakes, end up in wrong tributaries, spawn in new locations. The chaos creates opportunities. If conditions change in the original stream, maybe the fish that got lost will survive better. Order for continuity, chaos for adaptation. The species uses both. Butterflies emerge from chrysalises at times that seem perfectly coordinated with spring, as if they know when winter ends. Order. They're responding to temperature, day length, chemical signals. But not all butterflies emerge at once. Some are earlier, some later. The emergence spread over days or weeks. If a late frost comes, the early ones die. If warm weather holds, they get the best flowers. The chaos in timing protects the population from unpredictable weather. Random variance saves lives. Soil forms from rock, broken down by water and ice and roots and time, becoming the soft earth that holds life. The process seems chaotic. Cracks appear randomly. Roots push where they push. Water finds its own way in. But the result is ordered. Rock becomes smaller pieces. Become soil, following a sequence that's reliable enough to map and study. chaos of method, order of outcome. The rock doesn't know it's becoming soil, but it does anyway, following patterns established long before any particular rock existed. Swallows build nests from mud, making thousands of trips to gather material, patting it into place with their beaks, creating a cup strong enough to hold eggs and chicks. Each nest is unique, shaped by the space available, the mud's consistency, the individual bird's technique, chaos in specifics. But every nest is also the same shape, follows the same engineering principles, works the same way. Order in general. The swallow knows how to build without knowing that it knows, creating structure without conscious plan. Fog rolls in from the sea, moving across land in soft waves that blur everything they touch. It seems to flow randomly, thickening here, thinning there, playing with the landscape. But fog follows rules. It forms where air temperature meets dew point. It moves with wind. It dissipates when the sun warms things enough. Every foggy morning is different. Every foggy morning is the same. You can't predict exactly where fog will be at any moment, but you can predict the conditions that create it. Underground water seeps through rock, following cracks and channels, finding its way down and sideways, eventually emerging as springs. The flow seems chaotic, water going wherever gaps allow, no visible order to the system. But hydrogeologists can map aquifers, predict where water will surface, understand the patterns. The chaos at the small scale, this crack, that channel, creates order at the large scale. Reliable water tables, consistent springs. The disorder serves order. The order depends on disorder. Tree rings record years of growth, each ring representing a summer's worth of wood added to the trunk. Thick rings for good years, thin for bad. A history written in circles. The pattern is order. You can count rings to find a tree's age. But within that order is chaos, years varying based on rain, temperature, disease, competition from other trees. The order contains the chaos, preserves it, makes it readable decades or centuries later. The tree doesn't record its history intentionally, but the record is there anyway. Lightning bugs flash in summer darkness, each one blinking on its own schedule, creating a scatter of lights across a field. Chaos, except sometimes they synchronize, thousands of beetles flashing together in rhythm, the whole field pulsing with light. Order. How do they do it? Each beetle watches others and adjusts slightly, speeding up or slowing down its flash to match its neighbors. From individual chaos emerges collective order, not through leadership or planning, but through simple responsiveness. The order is an accident, or the chaos is intentional, or both are neither. Rocks tumble down mountains during slides and avalanches, bouncing unpredictably, coming to rest in heaps that seem completely random. But engineers study these patterns and find order. Rocks of certain sizes travel certain distances. The angle of the heap follows predictable physics. The distribution of boulders matches computer models. The tumbling is chaos, but chaos that follows rules, randomness that's statistically predictable. Each rock's journey is unique and ungovernable, but thousands of rocks make a pattern. Bats emerge from caves at dusk in swirling clouds that look like smoke, thousands of animals flying in all directions. But they're not hitting each other. They're navigating with echolocation, each one sensing the space around it, adjusting constantly. The cloud looks chaotic, but is actually thousands of tiny ordered responses. Avoid that bat, find this gap, follow the airflow. Chaos made of order, order made of chaos, distinction dissolved. Perhaps you're drifting now, feeling the softness of these ideas. Remember, our playlist has more stories like this, gentle companions for quiet nights. Spiderlings hatch from egg sacs by the hundreds, tiny spiders barely visible. They climb to high points and release silk threads, which catch the wind and carry them away. Ballooning, it's called. Where they land is pure chaos, this field, that forest, this rooftop, that lake. Most land somewhere they can't survive, but some land perfectly, finding good habitat purely by accident. The species uses chaos as a dispersal method, throwing babies into the wind and trusting that randomness will plant enough of them in suitable homes. Order would keep them together, safe but vulnerable to local disasters. Chaos spreads them out, risky but resilient. Frost heaves stones upward through soil during winter as freezing and thawing push rocks toward the surface. Over years, fields fill with stones that seem to appear from nowhere, chaos erupting from earth. But the mechanism is ordered. Water expands when frozen, contracts when thawed, each cycle pushing stones up a little. The chaos of appearance hides the order of process. Farmers cursing at endless rocks are witnessing physics at work, reliable as sunrise, creating apparent randomness through consistent force. Otters slide down muddy banks for fun, or maybe for efficiency, or maybe for both. They've worn smooth chutes in the soil, returning to the same spots day after day. That's order, predictable behavior, reliable paths, but the sliding itself is chaotic. Each descent different, sometimes graceful, sometimes tumbling, always unique. The otter doesn't care about consistency, only about getting down the bank, and maybe about the joy of sliding. Order in location, chaos in execution, perfection in neither and both. Air pressure systems move across continents, highs and lows spinning and pushing, creating weather. The systems are ordered enough to track, to predict days in advance, to name and map. But the specific weather at any location is chaotic. Will it rain here at 2 p.m.? Will wind gust above 20 miles per hour? The big picture is relatively clear. The details perpetually uncertain. Meteorologists have gotten good at describing the order while acknowledging the chaos, giving forecasts that are both confident and hedged, definite and tentative, like nature itself. Woodpeckers drill holes in trees, seeking insects, creating nests. The holes seem randomly distributed, appearing wherever the bird decides. But the woodpecker is reading the tree, listening for hollow spots, feeling for soft wood, finding places where insects are likely. What looks like chaos to us is actually the bird making informed decisions based on perceptions we don't share. The order is there, invisible to eyes that don't know how to see it. The tree shows its secrets to those with ears to hear the differences in the sound of tapping. Mushroom spores drift on air currents, microscopic particles floating invisible. Each spore lands wherever wind takes it, and most land somewhere they can't grow. Too dry, too bright, wrong chemistry, pure chaos as a reproductive strategy. But the mushroom releases billions of spores, and pure randomness ensures that some will land in good spots. The waste is enormous, the strategy reliable. Order through chaos, success through failure, continuation through loss. The mushroom doesn't aim because aiming would limit where spores land, and the best place might be the place you wouldn't think to aim toward. Stars in the sky seem scattered randomly, sprinkled across darkness without pattern. But humans have always found patterns, constellations, asterisms, shapes in the chaos. Are the patterns real or imagined? Both. The stars don't form a bear or hunter, but they also do if you connect them right. The chaos permits pattern finding. Order emerges from randomness through the human tendency to make meaning. The sky is a Rorschach test, random enough to let us see what we need to see. Your mind is settling now, following these thoughts into softness. The distinction between chaos and order is fading, becoming less important, letting you rest. Ferns unfurl in spring, tight spirals opening into spreading fronds. The spiral is ordered, a mathematical shape called a logarithmic spiral, each coil a specific fraction larger than the one before. But which fern unfurls when and how fast, and whether it gets eaten by a deer before finishing, that's chaos. The shape is reliable, the fate isn't. The fern carries order in its form and meets chaos in its life. Both are necessary. Both are real. Glacial erratics are boulders deposited far from their source rock, carried by glaciers and dropped when ice melted. They sit in fields and forests like misplaced punctuation, huge stones that don't match the local geology. Chaos, rocks ending up nowhere they belong. But also order. You can trace erratics back to their sources, map glacial movements, understand ice age patterns. The chaos is evidence of order. The disorder proves sequence. The lost boulders tell stories of journeys they didn't choose to take. Prairie dog towns have structure, tunnels and chambers, entrance holes carefully placed. But the towns also spread organically, growing where digging is good, shrinking where conditions fail. Individual burrows are placed with care. The whole complex emerges without centralized planning. Order at the burrow level, chaos at the town level, yet somehow it all works. Each prairie dog thinks locally, the town thinks globally, without thinking at all. Sap rises in trees in spring, flowing from roots to branches through xylem tubes. The flow is ordered, water moving up, pulled by evaporation from leaves, pushed by pressure from roots. But which tube carries how much is chaotic, responding to local conditions, tiny variations in temperature and pressure. The overall flow is reliable. The specific distribution shifts constantly. The tree doesn't micromanage, doesn't need to. The chaos balances itself. Auroras shimmer in northern skies, curtains of light waving and dancing. They seem pure chaos, randomness painted in green and red and purple. But they're ordered. Solar wind hitting atmosphere, charged particles following magnetic field lines, specific gases glowing specific colors at specific altitudes. The dance looks improvised, but follows physics. The chaos is performance. The order is choreography. The aurora doesn't choose how to move, it moves how it must. And that necessity creates beauty that seems free. Light breaks into rainbows when it passes through water droplets, splitting into colors that band across the sky. The order is perfect. Colors always in the same sequence. Physics determining position. But no two people see the exact same rainbow. It depends on your viewing angle, which droplets you're seeing, where you stand. The order is universal. The experience is personal. The rainbow is both shared and private, both physical fact and individual perception. Thank you for being here in this quiet space. If this brings you peace, perhaps leave a comment about which part spoke to you. Your words might help someone else find their way here. Bark patterns on trees look random, cracks and ridges spreading across trunks in irregular shapes. But the pattern reflects how the tree grows, expanding outward, creating tension, cracking where stress concentrates. The chaos of cracking follows the order of growth, which follows the chaos of weather and available resources, which follows the order of seasons. Layers of chaos and order alternating, creating texture you can touch, complexity you can see, pattern that's never quite pattern and never quite random. Tadpoles swim in ponds, darting and pausing, gathering and dispersing, their movements seeming aimless. But they're grazing on algae, avoiding predators, seeking warmth. Each tadpole follows simple rules. Go toward food, away from danger, near other tadpoles for safety. Simple, ordered rules produce complex, chaotic behavior, swarms that shift and pulse and change. The pond seems busy with randomness, but is actually busy with tiny, ordered decisions being made constantly by hundreds of small minds. Thunder rumbles irregularly, sometimes sharp cracks, sometimes long rolls, sometimes echoing and complex. The sound is chaos, bouncing off clouds and ground and hills, scattered and reformed. But it's also order, sound traveling at a predictable speed, lower frequencies traveling farther, each rumble telling you something about distance and landscape. The chaos carries information. The disorder has meaning if you know how to listen. Moss holds water like a sponge, releasing it slowly during dry periods. Each moss plant does this independently, following its own needs and conditions. But collectively, mossy areas stay damper longer, creating microhabitats for other species. Order emerging from chaos. Individual plants doing individual things, creating something larger than themselves without intending to. The moss doesn't cooperate, doesn't collaborate, just exists, and existence creates pattern. Meteor showers happen when Earth passes through debris trails left by comets, bits of rock burning up in atmosphere. The shower is predictable. It happens the same time each year when our orbit brings us through the debris. But which specific meteors you see is random. This streak now, that one there, scattered across the sky. Order in the event, chaos in the details, beauty in both. You can plan to watch the shower, but can't plan which meteors will appear in your view. Ice forms on puddles starting from edges, spreading inward until the whole surface is frozen. The process is ordered. Ice nucleates at boundaries, grows toward the center, follows thermodynamics. But the patterns in the ice are chaotic, cracks and bubbles and crystal formations that never repeat exactly. The freezing is reliable. The result is unique. Every frozen puddle becomes itself, following rules that allow infinite variation. Plant succession transforms landscapes through ordered stages, bare soil to grass, to shrubs, to forest, each stage preparing the way for the next. That's order, predictable, and studied. But which specific species arrive when involves chaos, seeds that happen to blow in, birds that happen to carry certain seeds, weather that happens to favor these plants over those. The overall progression is orderly. The specific community is chaotic, and both affect each other continuously. Sleep is coming closer now. You can feel it approaching like soft fog, gentle and inevitable. Let these thoughts fade into quiet. Pine cones open when dry, close when wet, protecting seeds from damp conditions. The mechanism is ordered. Cells on one side of scales absorb moisture differently than cells on the other, creating movement. But the timing is chaotic. This cone opens today, that one tomorrow, depending on exact conditions. The mechanism is reliable, the schedule isn't. And the chaos in timing means seeds disperse over extended periods, spreading risk across weather windows. Dragonflies catch mosquitoes mid-flight with 95% success rate, better than any human hunter. Their hunting seems chaotic, darting and hovering and zigzagging unpredictably. But research shows they're predicting where the mosquito will be, intercepting rather than chasing. The flight looks chaotic, but is actually solving complex physics problems in real time, ordered calculations producing irregular movement. The dragonfly hunts with chaos guided by order, randomness directed by mathematics. It doesn't know, it knows. Beaches change shape constantly, waves adding sand here, removing it there, shifting the shoreline daily. Chaos reshaping landscape. But over time, beaches maintain average profiles, steeper slopes for coarse sand, gentler for fine, predictable relationships between wave energy and beach shape. Day to day is chaos, decade to decade is order. The beach never looks the same twice, yet always looks like itself, constantly changing to stay constant. Squirrels bury nuts for winter, hiding them in hundreds of spots, often forgetting where they put them. The forgetting seems like failure, chaos interfering with the squirrel's plans. But the forgotten nuts sprout into trees, replacing the forest the squirrels depend on. The squirrel's chaos becomes the forest's order. Forgetfulness becomes planting. Failure becomes forestry. The squirrel provisions for winter and accidentally provisions for the future, serving itself and the ecosystem through imperfection. Birdsong varies between individuals, each bird singing slightly differently, even within a species. The variation is chaos, no standardization, no consistency. But the variation is how birds recognize each other, how they identify neighbors versus strangers, how they communicate individual fitness. The chaos carries information, the randomness has meaning. If all birds sang identically, the song would be less useful. Variation is feature, not bug. Chaos serving communications order. Mud cracks form in drying earth, geometric patterns of polygons spreading across bare ground. The pattern looks ordered, almost designed, but it's chaos expressing itself through physics, shrinkage creating stress, stress finding weak points, cracks propagating where resistance is lowest. The geometry emerges from disorder, regularity from randomness, pattern from process. The mud doesn't plan the cracks find themselves. Our playlist continues this gentle exploration, more stories waiting to help you drift into peace whenever you need them. Root systems extend underground in networks that look incredibly organized from diagrams but are actually chaotic in detail. Each root follows chemical gradients, avoiding obstacles, branching where conditions favor it. No central plan, no blueprint, just local decisions accumulating into something that works. The tree doesn't design its roots, the roots design themselves, finding order through accumulated chaos, structure through distributed decisions. Geese fly in V formations for efficiency, each bird benefiting from the updraft created by the bird ahead. That's order, precise positioning, calculated benefit. But which specific goose leads, and when they switch positions, and when the formation breaks and reforms, that's chaotic, responding to tiredness, wind conditions, individual decisions. The V is orderly, the birds within it are chaotic. Both are necessary for the flight to work. Dewdrops collect on spider webs overnight, beating along silk threads like jewelry. The beating is ordered. Water condensing preferentially at certain points due to surface tension and thread structure. But which specific drops form where involves chaos, temperature micro-variations, humidity fluctuations, air movements. The pattern is reliable enough to be beautiful, chaotic enough to be unique each morning. The web is decorated differently every dawn. Cicadas emerge periodically after years underground, sometimes 13 years, sometimes 17. Huge numbers appearing together. The timing is ordered, internal clocks, evolutionary pressure toward prime numbers that reduce predator synchronization. But the emergence itself is chaotic. This cicada today, that one tomorrow, scattered over weeks. The pattern protects the population through overwhelming numbers, ordered timing enabling chaotic execution. Shadows move across landscapes as the day progresses, sun traveling its arc, darkness sweeping predictably west to east. Order. But the exact shape of shadows depends on clouds, on moving branches, on countless tiny variations. Order at the large scale, chaos at the small, and everything in between, defined by which scale you're watching. The sun's path is reliable. The shadow of this specific leaf is not. Both are real. Both matter depending on what you're trying to understand. Let your breathing slow. You're part of this dance, this endless exchange between pattern and freedom, between structure and flow. Dandelion seeds parachute on wind, each one carrying potential life on a tuft of fluff. Where they land is pure chance. This lawn, that field, this crack in pavement. Chaos as dispersal, randomness as strategy. But the chaos serves order, spreading seeds widely, increases chances that some land in good spots. Perfect targeting would limit possibilities. Chaos creates options that order can't imagine, landing seeds in places no intelligent design would think to try. Honeycomb cells in beehives are near-perfect hexagons, the most efficient shape for storing honey while using minimal wax. The hexagons seem ordered, planned. But each bee builds its cell individually, following simple rules about cell size and wall thickness. The hexagons emerge from chaos, thousands of bees working without coordination, creating geometry through collective instinct. The perfection is accident, or rather, inevitable accident. Chaos constrained by physics producing order. Sandbars shift in rivers, building up here, eroding there, never quite settled. The shifting seems chaotic, water and sand interacting in complex ways. But the sandbars form in predictable locations, where current slows, where channels diverge, where floods deposit sediment. The chaos happens within ordered constraints, randomness working inside rules. The river creates pattern through disorder, order through chaos, shape through shapelessness. Frost patterns on windows are called dendrites because they look like tree branches, but they're ice crystals growing along temperature and moisture gradients. Each pattern is unique, responding to specific conditions that never exactly repeat. But each pattern is also the same, branching at similar angles, growing in similar ways. The chaos of specific conditions produces order of general form. The window shows you randomness behaving predictably, chaos following rules it doesn't know exist. Owls hunt silently, feathers specialized to muffle sound, flying like ghosts. The hunting path looks chaotic. The owl quarters back and forth, loops around, pauses, and hovers. But the pattern is ordered. Systematic coverage of territory, efficient searching, calculated pursuit. What looks random from the ground is actually methodical from the owl's perspective. The chaos is perceived, the order is real, or vice versa, depending on whether you're owl or observer. Thank you for spending this quiet time here. A gentle light reminds us that these peaceful moments matter to you, helping us create more. Icicles form on eaves where water drips and freezes, growing longer with each drop. The dripping is chaotic. This drop now, that drop in a moment, timing affected by sun and shadow and temperature. But the result is ordered. Icicles growing steadily, pointing down with perfect verticality, shaped by gravity that never wavers. Chaos of process, order of outcome, ice recording randomness in regular form. Flocks of birds turn together in flight, the whole group seeming to share one mind. But there's no leader, no plan, just each bird watching its neighbors and matching their movements. Order emerging from chaos, individual responses creating collective behavior that looks choreographed. The flock is both organized and improvised, structured and spontaneous, each bird free, yet the group coordinated. Seeds germinate when conditions are right. Right temperature, right moisture, right light. That's order, seeds following environmental cues. But what right means varies slightly between individual seeds, so they don't all sprout at once. Some germinate early, some late, spreading risk. If conditions deteriorate, early germinators die, but late ones survive. If conditions stay good, early germinators win. The chaos and timing creates resilience, variation providing insurance against uncertainty. River rocks clack together in currents, tumbling and grinding, gradually becoming rounder. The tumbling is chaotic. This rock hits that one, bounces unpredictably, settles in random positions, but the rounding is ordered. High points get knocked off first, shapes converge toward its spheres or ellipsoids. The process reliable even when individual impacts aren't. The river uses chaos to create order, randomness to produce regularity. Countless chaotic events accumulating into predictable results. Fog bows appear in mist when sun hits water droplets at the right angle, creating white or faintly colored arcs. Like rainbows, but paler, gentler, appearing and disappearing as fog shifts. The appearance is chaotic, fog moving unpredictably, sun breaking through clouds randomly. But the physics is ordered, light bending through water, always at the same angles, following laws that never change. Every fog bow is temporary, every fog bow is eternal, each one unique, yet identical. Northern lights dance in silent beauty, colors shifting and waving. They seem spontaneous, chaotic, random, but they're following magnetic field lines, responding to solar wind, obeying electromagnetic laws. The dance is improvised but not unscripted, free but not random. Beauty arising from physics that permits but constrains movement. The lights do what they must, and what they must do happens to be beautiful. Close your eyes if you haven't already. The distinction between order and chaos is just a thought now, fading like these words into the softness of rest. Waves crash on beaches at intervals that seem irregular, sometimes close together, sometimes far apart. But wave sets follow patterns, larger waves, smaller waves, periods you can time. The pattern is there if you watch long enough, order emerging from apparent chaos, rhythm from seeming randomness. Surfers learn to read the patterns, waiting for sets, counting waves, predicting rhythm and motion that never quite repeats. Anthills look chaotic, ants going everywhere, no obvious organization. But the colony functions perfectly. Food gets stored, young get fed, threats get addressed. Each ant follows simple rules. If you smell food, carry it home. If the nest is too hot, dig deeper. From simple ordered rules followed by individuals emerges the chaos of the visible surface and the order of the functioning colony. The anthill works because of chaos and order both, each necessary, neither sufficient alone. Pebbles on beaches sort themselves by size, larger stones accumulating in some areas, smaller in others. The sorting seems orderly, almost artificial, but it's chaos doing the work. Waves tossing stones, each stone responding to forces based on its weight, lighter ones traveling farther. The sorting is statistical. The chaos averaged over thousands of waves becomes the order of sorted stones. The beach organizes itself through disorder, patterns itself through randomness. Wind whistles through trees, making sounds that rise and fall, shift and change. The sound seems chaotic, random variations in pitch and volume, but it's ordered. Branches of certain thicknesses produce certain frequencies. Wind speed affects volume predictably. The forest creates harmonics and resonances. The music is composed by chaos, following rules, randomness constrained by physics, producing sounds that are never the same yet always recognized as wind in trees. Frost flowers form on young ice in winter, delicate crystal structures erupting from frozen surfaces. They look impossibly ordered, too perfect to be natural. But they form chaotically. Wherever slight warmth under ice forces water vapor up through cracks, where temperature and humidity happen to be right. The chaos of conditions creates the order of crystals. Randomness of location allows perfection of form. The ice makes flowers without knowing what flowers are. Leaves fall when ready, when temperature and light and internal chemistry align. The falling is ordered. Leaves don't fall randomly throughout the year, but which leaf falls when involves chaos? This one today, that one tomorrow, responding to individual conditions. The forest doesn't undress all at once. The striptease of autumn is gradual, chaotic timing within ordered season. The trees use chaos to spread the work, randomness to avoid overwhelming the soil with sudden leaf fall. Rest now. Let order and chaos blend together, distinctions dissolving into the soft place where sleep lives. Clouds form when air rises, cools, condenses, ordered process. But which cloud forms where, in what shape, moving which direction? Chaos. Weather lives in the space between, predictable enough to forecast days ahead, chaotic enough to surprise you constantly. The atmosphere is orderly chaos, chaotic order, both perfectly depending on what timescale you examine, what questions you ask, what you need the answer for. Tide pools refill with water twice daily, salt water bringing nutrients and oxygen, the rhythm absolutely reliable. That's order. You can set your clock by tides, but what the water brings varies. Different plankton, different temperatures, different dissolved oxygen. Chaos within order, variation within pattern. The tide pool depends on both, the reliability of refilling, the variety of what fills it. Spiders rebuild webs after they're damaged, making repairs or starting fresh depending on destruction severity. The decision process is ordered. Assess damage, evaluate repair cost versus rebuild cost. Act accordingly. But which specific damage requires which response involves chaos? The spider makes decisions we can't predict precisely. Order in strategy, chaos in tactics, the spider navigating between them without thinking about the distinction. Seasons cycle reliably, spring, summer, autumn, winter, each bringing characteristic conditions. perfect order, the most reliable pattern on Earth after day and night. But each spring is different, arriving early or late, warm or cool, wet or dry. Each winter varies, mild or harsh, snowy or clear. Order at the largest scale, chaos in details, both creating the world we live in, both necessary for life as it exists. Bioluminescence flashes in dark oceans when disturbed, tiny organisms lighting up in response to movement. Each flash is chaotic, this organism now, that one later, responding to local stimuli, but the pattern is ordered, consistent response to consistent stimulus, reliable enough that sailors use it to detect movement, see disturbances in water, chaos creating signal, disorder carrying information, randomness serving communication. Glacial melt creates streams that braid and merge and split, changing course constantly, never flowing the same way twice. Pure chaos, water finding paths of least resistance through gravel that shifts under its flow. But the overall drainage pattern is ordered. Water flows downhill, collects in channels, joins together into larger flows. Chaos at small scale serves order at large scale. Randomness organized by gravity. You might enjoy exploring our full playlist of gentle nature stories, each one a soft journey into peace and wonder. Mountains rise through tectonic forces, folded and lifted by colliding plates. The process ordered and understood. But which specific mountains rise where and how high and in what shapes? That involves chaos, the accumulated result of millions of small variations in rock strength, pressure distribution, erosion patterns. The mountains are ordered chaos, chaotic order. Geology writing stories in stone that mix pattern and randomness inseparably. Hummingbirds hover at flowers, wings beating so fast they blur. The hovering is ordered, precise control, measured position, calculated energy expenditure. But the flight path approaching the flower is chaotic, darting and zigzagging, responding to wind, avoiding obstacles. The bird uses chaos to navigate, order to feed, switching between them seamlessly, not recognizing any difference because there isn't one really, just different aspects of the same flight. Snow falls silently, each flake following air currents down. The falling is chaos, turbulent air, unpredictable paths, each flake's journey unique. But the accumulation is ordered, snow piling evenly across flat surfaces, deeper in valleys, less on peaks. Chaos of individual journeys creates order of blanket coverage, randomness producing regularity. The snow uses disorder to create order, falling chaotically to lie orderly. Coral polyps build reefs by laying down calcium carbonate, each polyp working independently, adding to the structure. The building is chaotic, no blueprint, no coordination, each polyp responding to local conditions. But the result is ordered. Reefs form characteristic shapes, grow in predictable directions, create structures that last millennia. The chaos builds order, the disorder creates structure, the randomness produces reliability that outlasts any individual polyp by centuries. Thunder and lightning are partners. Lightning creates thunder through rapid air expansion. That's order, cause and effect, physics linking them absolutely. But where lightning strikes is chaotic, lowest resistance path through air that varies microscopically. And the sound of thunder varies chaotically too, distance and terrain, affecting how it reaches you. Order in connection, chaos in expression, both present always. Prairie grass bends in wind, waves rolling across fields like water. The wave pattern is ordered, physics of flexible stems, transmission of force through vegetation. but which specific stems bend, when is chaotic, depending on local wind variations, individual plant strength, random timing. The wave is both smooth and rough, ordered and chaotic, pattern and variation, inseparable, creating the beauty of grass, moving like ocean. Feel yourself drifting now, order and chaos becoming meaningless words, just sounds, just breath, just softness. Lichen is two organisms, fungus and algae, living together so completely they seem like one thing. The partnership is ordered, reliable, defined by millions of years of evolution. But which specific fungus pairs with which specific algae involves chaos? Chance encounters, random proximity, successful combinations discovered through trial and error, repeated across countless individuals. Order creating framework for chaos, chaos filling framework of order. Rain falls from clouds when droplets grow heavy enough, the physics ordered and understood. But where each drop lands is chaos, wind pushing it, air current shifting it, the final impact point determined by factors too complex to track. The rain falls orderly, lands chaotically, waters the earth evenly through randomness. The ground doesn't care where each drop lands, only that drops land everywhere, which chaos guarantees. Dawn comes gradually, light increasing in smooth progression from dark to full day. That's order, predictable, reliable, never varying in overall pattern. But the specific colors, the cloud formations, the way light hits landscape, that's chaos, different every morning, responding to atmospheric conditions that never quite repeat. Each dawn is the same event, unique experience, ordered in timing, chaotic in expression. Beaver dams slow water, creating ponds that change landscapes. The dam is built chaotically, beavers adding sticks wherever gaps appear, no master plan. But the result is ordered. Water backs up predictably, ponds form characteristic shapes, downstream flow moderates consistently. The chaos of construction creates order of function, random stacking producing engineered result. Stars twinkle because atmosphere distorts their light, air movements bending and shifting the beam constantly. The twinkling is chaos, unpredictable, never repeating. But the cause is ordered, atmospheric physics, predictable processes creating random effects. Chaos serves order, making stars beautiful through disorder, adding dimension through randomness. Mushrooms fruit when conditions align, temperature, moisture, internal clock, all right. The fruiting is ordered, following reliable patterns. But where fruiting bodies appear involves chaos, which part of underground fungus sends up mushrooms depends on local conditions varying unpredictably. Order in timing, chaos in location, both creating autumn forests dotted with mushrooms and patterns that feel random, yet are perfectly explained by conditions we just can't fully see. And now, as these observations fade, as the dance between order and chaos dissolves into the peace of this moment, let yourself rest. The world continues its gentle balance, chaos and order, order and chaos, dancing together in darkness and light, in movement and stillness, in sleeping and waking. You are safe here. You are held by patterns you don't need to understand. Close your eyes now, if they're not already closed. Let go of distinguishing one thing from another. Let the world be what it is, beautifully, perfectly, mysteriously, both ordered and chaotic, and neither and everything in between. Thank you for wandering with me through these soft observations. May you rest deeply, peacefully, knowing that the same gentle forces that shape forests and rivers and stars are holding you to right now, in this quiet moment. Perhaps you're returning for more softness, more quiet observations to ease you into rest. We're still exploring that beautiful dance between chaos and order, finding peace in how nature holds both at once, never choosing, never separating, simply being what it is. Breathe slowly, settle in. Let's continue wandering together. Barnacles attached to rocks in tidal zones, cementing themselves permanently to stone. Where they settle seems chaotic, this rock, that shell, scattered without obvious pattern. But they're reading the surface, finding texture that allows strong attachment, avoiding spots too exposed or too sheltered. What looks random is actually thousands of individual decisions based on information we can't perceive. The chaos has order underneath. The randomness has reason, even if we can't always see it from our perspective. River deltas branch and split as water finds multiple paths to the sea, creating patterns that look like trees or lightning or veins. The branching is ordered, physics determining how water distributes itself. Sediment settles, channels form. But which specific branch goes where involves chaos, slight variations in sediment, random fluctuations in flow, unpredictable shifts in the riverbed. The delta is both tree and tangle, pattern and maze, order and chaos braided together like the channels themselves. Fireflies flash in summer darkness, each one with its own rhythm initially. But observe long enough, and you might see something magical. They start to synchronize, flashing together in waves across the field. How? Each firefly adjusts slightly to match its neighbors, speeding up or slowing down just a little. From individual chaos emerges collective order, not through leadership, but through attention. Each light watching other lights and choosing to harmonize. The field pulses with accidental agreement, chaos teaching itself to be order. Granite forms from cooling magma deep underground, crystals growing slowly over millions of years. The rock seems uniform, solid, ordered. But examine it closely and you'll see chaos, crystal sizes varying, minerals distributed irregularly, patterns unique to each piece. The formation process is ordered, temperature decreasing, minerals crystallizing in sequence. But the result is chaotic. No two pieces of granite identical, each one a unique frozen moment of cooling earth. Woodpecker holes in dead trees seem scattered randomly, dotting the trunk without obvious plan. But they're creating homes for dozens of other species. Owls, squirrels, insects, bats. The woodpecker drills where insects are, following its own needs chaotically. But the chaos creates order for the ecosystem, nesting sites distributed through the forest, different heights and sizes serving different species. One bird's chaos becomes a community's order, randomness serving structure, accident providing homes. Frost spreads across windows, starting from edges, creeping inward in branching patterns. The spreading is ordered, ice nucleating, growing along temperature gradients, following thermodynamics. But the exact pattern is chaotic. Branches forming at slightly different angles, growing different lengths, creating designs that never repeat. Your window becomes a canvas where physics paints with chaos, where order permits infinite variation, where every cold morning creates new art from old laws. If these gentle observations bring you comfort, perhaps consider leaving a like. It helps these quiet stories reach others seeking peace. Tide comes in gradually, water advancing up the beach in waves that seem irregular, larger pushes followed by smaller ones, the rhythm complex. But beneath the apparent chaos is order, the pull of moon and sun, the period of waves determined by storms far away, the beach's slope affecting how water advances. The tide knows exactly what it's doing, even if watching wave by wave makes it seem uncertain, random, unpredictable. Step back in time, and perfect pattern emerges from what looked like chaos. Earthworms tunnel through soil, creating channels that let air and water penetrate deeper. Each worm's path is chaotic, turning when it encounters rocks, following chemical gradients, responding to moisture. No coordination between worms, no master plan, but collectively, they create order. Soil aerated evenly, drainage improved throughout, structure transformed. The chaos of individual tunneling creates the order of healthy soil, randomness producing reliable benefit. Clouds build on summer afternoons, starting small, growing tall, sometimes becoming thunderstorms. The building is ordered, warm air rising, moisture condensing, latent heat driving further rising. But which cloud grows tall and which stays small involves chaos, slight differences in initial size, random variations in moisture, unpredictable wind patterns. Weather forecasters can predict that storms will form, but not exactly where. The atmosphere reserves the right to chaos even within its ordered processes. Aspen groves are actually single organisms, all the trees connected by roots, all growing from one parent plant. That's order, genetic identity, shared resources, coordinated existence. But the trees above ground look chaotic, different heights, different thicknesses, different states of health. The chaos above reflects order below, variation serving stability, diversity protecting unity. The grove is one being with many faces, order expressing itself through apparent chaos. Moonlight reflects off water in a bright path, leading straight toward you wherever you stand. The path seems to follow you, staying aligned no matter where you move. Magic, but also order. The angle of reflection always equals the angle of incidence. Basic physics creating personal experience. Each person sees their own moon path, their own silver line across the water. Order creating individual experience. Physics becoming personal. Reliable law producing unique perception. Seeds in a pod develop together, sharing resources, growing side by side. But they're not identical. Some larger, some smaller, some more viable than others. The variation is chaos within order, randomness within structure. When the pod opens, the variation means seeds have different fates. Large ones might grow strong quickly, small ones might wait for better conditions. The chaos provides options. Variation serves survival, difference creates resilience. Let your mind soften around these ideas. They're not asking you to understand, only to rest in the knowing that nature holds contradictions with ease. Spiderwebs sparkle with dewdrops in morning light, each drop catching sun and throwing tiny rainbows. The sparkling seems chaotic, drops positioned irregularly, some threads heavy with water, others nearly dry. But the dew follows order, condensing where thread thickness creates nucleation points, forming preferentially at certain temperatures. The web shows you both, chaos in the specific placement, order in the overall pattern. The spider's creation becomes a canvas for physics to paint on. Silk threads turn to jeweled strings by nothing but temperature and light. Volcanic islands form in chains across ocean floors as tectonic plates slide over hot spots. The chain is ordered, each island marking where the plate was when that volcano erupted, a timeline written in land. But the islands themselves are chaotic, different sizes, different shapes, different ecologies. The order is in the sequence, the chaos is in the expression. The ocean floor keeps records in stone, orderly chaos recording Earth's slow dance. Bluebirds return to the same nest boxes year after year, the pattern so reliable that people watch for them as signs of spring. That's order, migratory behavior refined over millennia, routes and timing predictable. But which specific bird arrives when involves chaos, individual variations in departure time, weather encountered en route, decisions made at every resting stop? The species is orderly, the individuals are chaotic, and somehow both levels work perfectly, each necessary for survival. Sand ripples form underwater, and on beaches, parallel ridges and valleys that look carefully sculpted. They emerge from chaos, water or wind moving sand grains individually, each grain's path unpredictable. But the ripples are ordered, spacing determined by grain size and flow speed, angles following physics, patterns reproducible in laboratories. The chaos of countless grains creates the order of ripples. Randomness averaged into regularity, disorder producing pattern through sheer number. Swallows return to old nests if they're still intact, but build new ones when necessary. The decision is ordered. Assess the nest, evaluate its condition, choose repair or rebuild. But which nests survive winter involves chaos, storms, predators, decay, random factors determining which homes last. The swallow adapts, using order to navigate chaos, making decisions based on what randomness has left behind. The bird doesn't lament chaos or fight it, just works with whatever spring brings. Phosphorescence in ocean water creates glowing trails behind boats, light appearing wherever water is disturbed. The light is ordered, consistent response to physical agitation, reliable chemical reaction in dinoflagellates. But the pattern is chaotic, swirls and streaks following turbulent wake, never quite repeating. The ocean writes light messages in chaos, uses disorder to make beauty, transforms disturbance into temporary art that dissolves as quickly as it forms. Our playlist continues with more gentle stories, soft explorations waiting to accompany your quiet moments whenever you need them. Mushroom fairy rings expand outward year by year, the circle growing larger as the fungus spreads through soil. The growth is ordered, steady expansion, predictable rate, consistent direction. But the mushrooms that appear above ground seem chaotically placed, here but not there. This part of the circle fruiting, while that part doesn't. The order is underground where you can't see it. The chaos is visible but superficial. The ring teaches patience, showing that order works on time scales longer than we usually watch. Hawks circle on thermals, rising without flapping, reading invisible columns of warm air. The circling is ordered. The hawk knows how thermals work, positions itself to maximize lift. But where thermals form is chaotic, sun heating ground unevenly, temperature differences creating rising air in patterns that shift and change. The hawk navigates between order and chaos, using knowledge to find randomness, applying skill to exploit unpredictability. The bird soars on chaos, guided by understanding of order. Lichens grow slowly on rock surfaces, expanding millimeters per year, partnerships between fungi and algae thriving in harsh conditions. The growth rate is ordered, measurable, consistent, reliable enough that lichen size can date rockfalls or gravestones. But which rocks get colonized first? involves chaos, spores landing randomly, some spots more hospitable than others, initial colonization determined by factors too small to predict. Over decades, order emerges, rocks gradually covered, patterns spreading, but the beginning is always chaos, random settlement, creating the foundation for orderly expansion. Bubbles in streams form where water tumbles over obstacles, air mixing into flow. The bubbles seem chaotic, appearing and vanishing, swirling and spinning, no two alike. But their formation is ordered. Air entrainment happens at specific turbulence levels. Bubble size depends on surface tension and water velocity. The stream creates chaos through ordered process, uses physics to make randomness, produces apparent disorder through reliable mechanisms. Each bubble is unique, yet typical, chaotic, yet predictable. Autumn colors change as chlorophyll breaks down and other pigments show through. The colors are ordered, yellows and oranges and reds appearing in sequence as different compounds degrade, the chemistry consistent and understood. But which tree changes when involves chaos, responding to individual genetics, local conditions, specific weather patterns? The hillside transforms gradually. Some trees blazon while others stay green. The whole forest changing through uncoordinated individual decisions that create collective beauty. Snowflakes melt when they land on warm surfaces, dissolving almost instantly. The melting is ordered, heat transfer, phase change, reliable thermodynamics. But which flakes land on warm spots versus cold ones is chaos. Wind depositing them randomly, some lucky enough to land on cold surfaces where they'll survive. The snow accumulates through chaos, building depth where randomness happens to deliver more flakes to cold spots. Winter creates landscape through probability, depth through dice rolls, coverage through chance. Feel the softness of this moment. Let order and chaos be words without meaning, just sounds, just breath, just peace. Tree roots encounter rocks underground and must decide, grow around or grow under, spread sideways or dive deeper. Each decision is chaotic in some sense, responding to immediate conditions, local soil chemistry, water location right now. But the overall root structure is ordered, balanced for stability, efficient for water gathering, spreading wide enough for support. The chaos of individual decisions creates the order of functional architecture, thousands of small, random choices producing reliable structure. Pond ice forms from edges inward and from bottom up, crystals nucleating wherever conditions cross the freezing threshold. The process is ordered. Ice forms at exactly 0 degrees Celsius. Crystals align in predictable ways. Physics governing everything. But the pattern of freezing is chaotic. This area freezes first, that area later, depending on depth, wind exposure, underwater springs. By morning, the whole pond is frozen in order that contains the memory of chaos, smooth surface, hiding the complex sequence of its own formation. Warblers migrate at night, flying under cover of darkness, navigating by stars. The strategy is ordered, tested over millions of years, refined through evolution, reliable enough for tiny birds to cross continents. But individual flights are chaotic. This warbler blown off course, that one finding good winds, each journey unique. Most birds arrive, which is order. Each has a different story, which is chaos. The species continues, which is order. But each generation's journey rewrites itself, which is chaos. Pollen tubes grow through flower structures toward ovules, guided by chemical signals. The guiding is ordered. The flower produces attractants. The pollen follows gradients. Fertilization happens through directed growth. But the timing is chaotic. Which pollen grain arrives first involves chance, wind patterns, insect behavior. The flower uses order to direct traffic, but allows chaos to provide genetic mixing, combining precision with randomness to serve reproduction's needs for both reliability and diversity. Quartz crystals grow in cavities in rock, building perfect six-sided points over thousands of years. The geometry is ordered, the internal structure of silicon and oxygen atoms dictating form. Angles always the same, faces always flat. But the size and clustering of crystals is chaotic, depending on space available, mineral-rich water flow, countless factors that vary unpredictably. The order is atomic, the chaos is geological. Both scales matter, both create the crystal. Wave interference creates patterns where water from different sources meets. Harbor entrances, river mouths, anywhere flows converge. The pattern is ordered, waves adding and canceling according to mathematics. Peak plus peak, making bigger peak. Peak plus trough, making flatness. But the waves coming in are chaotic, varying sizes, different periods, arriving from multiple directions. Order of interference acting on chaos of waves creates patterns that shift and dance. Geometry painted in water, mathematics made visible through disorder. Thank you for being here in this quiet space. If you're finding peace, a comment about what resonates with you might guide others to these gentle moments too. Seedlings emerge from soil reaching for light, stems bending toward brightness through slow growth movements. The reaching is ordered, phototropism, understood and predictable, tested in every biology classroom. But which direction has the most light varies chaotically, shadows shifting, clouds passing, neighboring plants growing. The seedling navigates chaos using ordered response, applying reliable behavior to unpredictable environment, finding sun through method applied to randomness. Bats echolocate by emitting sounds and listening for echoes, building mental maps of space through sound. The system is ordered, consistent frequency use, precise timing, mathematical processing of echoes. But the environment they navigate is chaotic, branches waving, insects flying, surfaces reflecting unpredictably. The bat uses order to navigate chaos, applies structure to understand disorder, and flies confidently through darkness by trusting both the reliability of physics and its own ability to process complexity in real time. Meadowgrass seeds scatter when ripe, each one held temporarily by a dried stem that eventually releases it. The release seems chaotic, wind shaking stems unpredictably, some seeds falling early, others holding on. But the chaos serves order, scattering seeds over time rather than all at once, spreading germination across weeks, ensuring that if conditions are bad when first seeds fall, later ones might find better situation. The grass uses chaos to manage risk, randomness to ensure survival. Icicles grow from dripping water that freezes before it falls, each drop adding a layer, the icicle lengthening downward. The growth is ordered, gravity pulling, freezing happening consistently, shape following physics. But the dripping is chaotic, affected by sun, temperature fluctuations, ice melting irregularly. The icicle records chaos in its growth rings, preserves randomness in solid form, translates variable dripping into permanent structure. Each icicle's shape tells the story of the weather that made it. Butterflies warm themselves by basking in sun, wings spread to catch maximum light. The behavior is ordered, thermoregulation, understood and necessary, performed by every individual. But which spot they choose for basking involves chaos. This sunbeam in this gap between leaves right now, warm stone that happen to be available, specific moments in specific places. The butterfly uses ordered behavior to exploit chaotic opportunity, combines reliable instinct with flexible response to ever-changing environment. Creeks follow valleys, flowing in paths carved by previous water, their courses seemingly determined by landscape. That's order. Water flows downhill, takes the path of least resistance, creates predictable patterns. But within the valley, the exact path meanders, shifts, changes year to year. Small chaos within large order, the creek writing and rewriting its story within constraints set by hillsides. Never quite the same, but never completely different, both faithful and faithless to its own previous path. Let yourself drift now, these observations becoming distant, soft, like memories of memories, fading into the quiet place where sleep begins. Fog layers form at different altitudes when temperature inversions trap moisture at specific heights. The layering is ordered, physics determining where fog forms, thermodynamics controlling behavior. But the fog itself moves chaotically within those layers, wisping and swirling, thinning and thickening, appearing and vanishing. You see order from a distance, distinct layers hovering, and chaos up close, fog moving without pattern. Scale changes what you see. But both views are true. Both are real. Both are the fog being fog. Spider silk is stronger than steel by weight, its molecules aligned in ordered crystalline regions that give it strength. But the silk also has amorphous regions where molecules are disordered, giving it flexibility. The spider creates order and chaos in the same strand, structure and flexibility in the same thread. Pure order would be brittle, pure chaos would be weak. The spider's silk is strong because it's both, mixing order's strength with chaos's give, creating something better than either alone. Geese honk while flying in formation, constant communication keeping the group coordinated. The honking is ordered, maintaining contact, confirming position, coordinating movement. But the honks themselves are chaotic, different birds calling at different times, no rhythm or sequence, just ongoing noise. Yet the noise works, information transmitted, group cohesion maintained, the chaos of sound serving the order of formation, randomness enabling organization. Moss carpets forest floors and green blankets that seem uniform from above. But up close, the moss is diverse, dozens of species mixed together, some tiny and bright, others larger and darker. The mixing is chaotic, species growing wherever conditions suit them, no planning or organization. But the result is ordered. Complete coverage, erosion prevented, moisture retained, chaos creating ecosystem service, diversity producing reliable function, randomness yielding dependability. Raindrops hit leaves with timing that's purely chaotic. This drop now, that drop a moment later, no pattern or rhythm. But the sound of rain is ordered, white noise mathematically predictable, all frequencies represented equally. Chaos in the individual, order in the collective. One drop is random, a million drops is rain, and rain has its own orderly sound that humans find soothing. Because the chaos is so complete, it becomes pattern. Ice shelves calve icebergs when cracks propagate through ice, made brittle by stress. The calving is ordered, physics of fracture, mechanical failure following predictable principles. But when and where specific icebergs break free involves chaos, microcracks forming randomly, storms applying stress unpredictably, each calving event unique. The shelf loses ice systematically but unpredictably, following rules while maintaining suspense, being both inevitable and surprising. Perhaps you'd enjoy exploring more of our gentle stories, each one crafted to help you find peace in nature's quiet rhythms. Squirrels chatter when they sense threats, alarm calls warning others in the area. The warning is ordered, specific calls for specific dangers, consistent meaning across populations. But which squirrel calls first involves chaos. Which one happens to see the threat, where individuals are positioned, random factors determining who sounds the alarm. The order of language works through the chaos of circumstance, reliable signals transmitted through unpredictable networks. Tides create currents that flow with predictable timing, water rushing through channels on schedules set by moon and sun. The schedule is ordered. You can look up current times years in advance, plan boat trips around them. But the water's actual movement is chaotic, eddies and swirls, turbulence and flow patterns that shift constantly. The order is in the timing, the chaos is in the detail. Both are necessary to understand how water actually moves. Fern fronds uncurl in spring, tight spirals opening into spreading leaves. Each frond follows the same mathematical curve, a logarithmic spiral, perfect in proportion. That's order, genetic instruction executed precisely, geometry emerging from biology. But which fronds emerge when varies chaotically, responding to warmth, moisture, damage, individual plant conditions. The form is reliable, the timing isn't. Both matter for the fern's survival. Stone walls placed by farmers centuries ago still divide fields, human order imposed on landscape. But the walls are slowly returning to chaos, stones shifted by frost, gaps opened by roots, sections tumbled by time. The order deteriorates toward chaos, structure softens toward randomness, human intention yields to natural process. Eventually the wall becomes a stone pile, then scattered rocks, then just part of the landscape. Order to chaos, structure to freedom, nothing permanent except change itself. Let your thoughts slow. Let the words become meaningless sounds. Let order and chaos both dissolve into the soft darkness behind your eyelids. Both become just this moment, just breath, just peace. You're held here, safe in the space where distinctions don't matter, where everything is what it is, perfectly, beautifully, completely. Rest now.